For 35 years, I never imagined a family dinner could shatter everything I believed in. But as I sat at the table, surrounded by flickering candlelight and the rich aroma of home-cooked stew, I realized I had walked into a carefully orchestrated betrayal. 2 weeks earlier, my mother had called, her voice unusually sweet. "Sophia, come home for dinner. It's been too long." Against my better judgment, I drove from San Francisco to Sacramento, clinging to the naive hope that maybe, just maybe, they truly missed me. Minutes after sitting down, my younger brother Parker dropped the bomb. "Mom and Dad finalized their will. Everything, the house, the Tahoe villa, it's all going to Olivia and me." I set my fork down. "What?" My mother sighed, as if I were the one being unreasonable. "You have your own life, your own success. Parker and Olivia need the support, more." Support? Olivia, who never held a job for more than 6 months. Parker, who switched majors like changing TV channels. And what about the money I spent paying off the mortgage? The $40,000 I invested in the villa? That doesn't count? Olivia scoffed. "Keeping tabs on every penny? That's disappointing." Parker smirked. "You're acting like a child who lost their favorite toy." Their words cut deeper than I cared to admit. I wasn't family, I was an ATM. And now that I was no longer useful, they were discarding me. I stood. "I've heard enough. I'm done." My mother's voice sharpened. "Sophia, if you walk out that door, don't ever think about coming back." I didn't stop. I didn't need to. Back in San Francisco, I canceled every recurring payment, $2,100 a month, gone in a tap. The first call came the next morning, then another, and another. My mother, my father, Olivia, Parker, each with their own version of guilt, entitlement, and blame. I ignored them. Then finally, I answered Parker's call. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he spat. "Taking back what's mine. You're a venomous snake. You think you can abandon us without consequences? Just wait." He hung up. I blocked them all. One by one, their names disappeared from my contacts. For the first time in years, I felt peace. 3 weeks passed in blissful silence. Then, on a Friday afternoon, a message from my mother. "Family meeting. 7 p.m. The house. This is not an invitation." I stared at my phone, my pulse steady. No, this time I was free. Part of me, the part that still stupidly believed in miracles, wanted to see what they would do next. So, I sent back a single word. Fine. When I arrived, Parker's BMW and Olivia's obnoxiously pink Mini Cooper were already parked neatly in the driveway. As I stepped onto the porch, my mother opened the door almost instantly, a fake smile plastered on her face. "Sophia, you finally decided to come home?" I stepped inside. The once familiar house now felt suffocating. My father sat in the center of the living room, his face serious. Parker and Olivia lounged on the couch, their eyes glinting with triumph. Something was very wrong. Slowly, I pulled out a chair, sat down, crossed my legs, and folded my arms. "So," I said flatly, "what is this about?" My father cleared his throat, his gaze sharp. "We need to resolve this tension." I let out a dry chuckle. "Tension? You mean the fact that I stopped paying for all of you?" My mother exhaled, trying to keep her voice gentle. "Sophia, you overreacted. Your father and I only wanted what was best for you." Parker scoffed. "Did you even think before cutting us off like that? Do you not see how childish and selfish that was?" My jaw clenched. Childish? Selfish? My voice was dangerously low. "I've kept this family afloat for over a decade. If anyone here is selfish, it's all of you." Olivia crossed her arms, her voice soft, but laced with poison. "You're acting like a victim, but let's be real. You're just mad because Mom and Dad didn't leave you an inheritance, aren't you?" A cold fury burned in my chest. I slowly stood up, my gaze sweeping across each of their faces. "I came here because I thought maybe, just maybe, you had finally realized what you did wrong." I let out a sharp laugh. "But no, you're still the same. Leeches, selfish, ungrateful." My mother shot up from her seat, her voice sharp as a blade. "If you walk out that door, don't expect to be welcomed back." I stopped at the doorway, my hand gripping the knob. I turned, my head locking eyes with her. My voice was cold as ice. "I never felt welcome here in the first place." Then, I opened the door and walked away without looking back. When I arrived home, I froze. My door was sealed shut. A thick layer of grayish-white expanding foam covered the entire frame, spilling over the edges, hardened like cement. Someone had deliberately sabotaged my home. I didn't need to ask who. Fury boiled in my veins. I pulled out my phone, opened my security camera app, and rewound the footage. There he was, a man in a gray hoodie and a baseball cap, grinning smugly as he sprayed foam all over my door. Parker. My hands clenched into fists. Did they really think they could intimidate me? That I'd crawl back, begging for forgiveness? No. I saved the video, took clear screenshots of his face, and immediately called the police. 30 minutes later, a young officer stood in front of my apartment, his expression a mix of sympathy and professionalism. "Do you want to file a formal complaint?" he asked, his tone neutral but hesitant, as if hoping I'd let it slide. I let out a cold chuckle. "I didn't call you here for a friendly chat." He nodded and flipped open his notebook. "Parker, that's your brother, right?" I met his gaze, my voice ice cold. "Not anymore." The next morning, my father called. "Sweetheart, does this really have to go this far? Are you calling to ask me to drop the charges?" "It's not that. It's just..." You know Parker was upset. He didn't mean any harm. I scoffed. "No harm? He sealed my door shut. What if I had an important meeting? What if I had a pet or a child inside?" Silence. I continued. "He thought he could intimidate me. I'll show him he picked the wrong person." Dad sighed. "Do you really want to push this that far?" "It wasn't me who did this. Parker did. Actions have consequences." "What do you want to drop the charges?" $33,000. "What?" "That covers the cost of repairing my door, legal fees if this drags out, and damages for harassment. That's a very reasonable number." "This is extortion!" I chuckled coldly. "No, Dad! This is consequences!" 3 days later, my account received exactly $33,000 from my parents' joint account. No messages from my mother, no complaints from Parker. Even Olivia, who relished every opportunity to be cruel, was completely silent. They thought the money would make me go away. What they didn't understand was this. I didn't need them anymore, but they weren't done. Soon, a flood of hypocritical messages arrived from distant relatives. Aunt Susan. "Sophia, I'm very disappointed in you. Your parents sacrificed their whole lives for you, and this is how you repay them." Uncle Mark. "Family is forever. Don't let money make you lose your humanity." Cousin Rachel. "I can't believe you'd abandon your parents. They're about to lose their home. Don't you feel any guilt?" I read each message, both amused and disgusted. I knew exactly who was behind this. My mother. She couldn't win against me with logic, so she used social pressure. She spun a new narrative, one where I was the heartless daughter who left her poor, aging parents on the brink of homelessness. A perfect sob story. Except for one problem. It wasn't true. I had carried them financially for over a decade. I had paid their mortgage, covered their bills, funded Parker and Olivia's lives without ever asking for anything in return. They weren't abandoned. They had used me, and I was done. I opened my laptop and typed, "I tried to be a good daughter, but they never truly loved me." Within hours, my post had thousands of shares and comments. Some were supportive, others were critical. I didn't care. 3 hours later, my mother called. "Sophia, what the hell are you doing?" Calmly, telling the truth. "You're destroying this family's reputation." "No, Mom. You did that when you made me the villain in your story. You're going to regret this." "No, you will." I hung up, and for the first time I felt free.